And we're back with more of the Shacknews Awards 2023. You know, Shacknews started as a site dedicated to Quake once upon a time, over 28 years ago. And we still care a lot about first person shooters. You know, Doom. We've written several long reads on Doom. We've written the definitive history of Quake called Rocket Jump. Highly recommend people check out those long reads on our site, which are available for free. But you know, this year we saw some FPS games release. We thought we'd nominate them for this award and then get to deliberating. So here are the nominees for Best FPS Game of the Year 2023. Counter-Strike 2, Quake 2, Remaster, I guess we should call it.
Yeah.
Payday 3, System Shock Remake, Metroid Prime Remastered, and RoboCop Rogue City. Donovan, I think you're playing Counter-Strike 2 for Shacknews right now. What are your thoughts on it? I think we've mentioned in some other categories, but specifically from an FPS standpoint, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Counter-Strike 2 is like it's the quintessential first-person shooter, specifically tactical shooter, right? Like it's the blueprint. It's inspired many games. It'll. I think I made the joke. I forget if I did it on camera or not, but I'm like, if the world ended, is if there was a computer somewhere, like people would be playing Counter-Strike still on it. Like it's got that staying power. Gameplay is sharp, tactful, very straightforward, brutally difficult, but it's why people come back to play it so much. It's got that like impossibly high skill ceiling, yet easy enough to jump in for anybody, I think. And it's great. I think all the stuff they did with it this year, ushering in the new engine, revitalizing some of those systems, sounds and visuals, were all very well done. So
yeah, so this is a
worthy
Source
nomination.
2 engine game, right? That was the big update from CS:GO to this. Yeah, it was definitely. I've said this in other categories too, but yeah, we should just keep encouraging Valve to make video games. So we're happy that you folks updated Counter-Strike to 2. Maybe someday there'll be a Counter-Strike 3?
Ooh, let's not get crazy.
Okay. Oh yeah. Maybe just CS:GO 2. After
Yeah, they'll do that.
They'll do that instead. Yeah. But anyway, we hope that Valve will someday count to 3 with several of their IP. I mean, a Team Fortress 3. Would anyone argue? Probably. But you know, that's food for thought on another day. But anyway, thank you, Valve, for making a video game and updating it and all the work they're doing with Source 2. Like, David, it really does seem like when Valve makes a new engine, they feel almost obligated to make a game to show people what you can do with it.
They're a lot like Nintendo in that way. Like they have to show their hardware, and they probably make the best use of it.
Yeah, so Valve, I think occasionally, we saw it when they launched Steam Deck, there was like a little app in the Portal universe, or even when HTC Vive was launching, Valve had this thing called The Lab in it that was like a series of really cool demos in VR. So yeah, there's like this relationship between like necessity and them making a game versus just sitting there and collecting 30% of Steam sales for eternity. But yeah, thank you, Valve. Keep making games. Another shooter. This is honestly my favorite Quake. Quake 2 Remastered. Night Dive hit a fucking home run here. Like, holy shit, is this game excellent. And it was already great, right? So I find these remasters to be very difficult because, like, you can screw it up more often than you actually make it better. In this case, Quake 2 Remastered is materially better. It runs awesome on most PCs. It's great. I believe it was a free update also. So if you already owned Quake, you didn't have to buy anything, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, David, I see you nodding. Would you like to add something to this?
No, I'm with you. Quake 2 has always been my favorite Quake because if you look at the history of that franchise, the original version wasn't going to be an FPS at all. But then, the tech was taking so long to come together that the team kind of basically said, let's just make another Doom. So Quake 1 was kind of Doom, but not as good, I think. The mission design, the level design wasn't as cohesive.
It was
And then Quake,
patchwork.
it was just kind of patchwork. Like the levels were fun for what they were, but it was Doom in 3D, basically. Quake 2, well, jump ahead to Quake 3, no campaign. It was just multiplayer, and the campaign was fighting against bots, which is fun, but it's not really, you're not exploring a world or, going through a story. Quake 2, I feel it was the black sheep then, and it kind of is now. It was doing cohesive, contiguous levels before Half-Life 2, almost a year before Half-Life 2. It was trying to tell a story, a good, I think, 6 months before Unreal. And, the story was basically complete objectives to shoot the thing or open the thing, kind of id Software style. But I love the enemy design. The AI was pretty cool for the time. Every now and then they would crouch to avoid rockets, and they have even more AI in this game, so they're a much better challenge. Also, Night Dive has collected, they basically made the definitive collection for Quake 2. You've got all the expansions, you've got a brand new campaign, you've got Quake 2 64, which was a completely different game from the PC original. It even adheres to the really cool colored lighting that was possible on the N64. So I feel like this is much like we don't normally put remasters up against new games, but Night Dive has been doing this so well for so long that they're basically the digital eclipse of FPS campaigns. Like they just haven't missed yet, and this one I think is probably their best.
Yeah, it felt weird to nominate it, but at the same time, it would have felt weird if we didn't acknowledge it at all this year. As Quake is a large part of our site's history, and Quake 2 is my favorite Quake, and it introduced the damn railgun, David. Come on,
it introduced the railgun, and also I feel like, kind of like with other black sheep in various franchises, I think people have come around on Quake 2, realized that it's awesome, and Night Dive's remaster played a big part in that this year.
Yeah, I do think that people who back in '97 were crapping all over this game because they were Quake 1 purists or whatever, whatever the hell that is. But Quake 2 felt new when it came out. You were like, wow, I need a new graphics card. I need a new sound card. My CPU sucks, right? Like it was Quake was that moment originally, and then if you didn't upgrade your PC, then by the time Quake 2 came out, you're like, yeah, my PC can't run this. And it's just cool to be able to play it with the visual fidelity of an ultra wide monitor now, and these things that we take for granted. Yeah, it runs extremely well. And just one last thing, what a banger soundtrack! Holy crap!
I think it's the best soundtrack of Quake. Like Nine Inch Nails did a great job, but they were creating ambient noise.
It
right?
was just
kind of a
Trent screaming into like a megaphone in the corner of some studio in New Orleans, and that was like for 30 minutes. Like that was Quake 1 soundtrack, where they actually made music for Quake 2. I remember putting the Nine Inch Nails logo on all those ammo boxes and stuff. It felt more like marketing than actually music. But yeah, Quake 2, very good nominee. I think we should be playing this for big team building or just some streams down the road. It runs extremely well on most PCs, and it's just a damn fine game. So happy to see it here nominated. Not sure if it'll win, but we had to give it the nomination, the tip of the fedora at the very least. Our next nominee is Payday 3.
Yes.
Sam.
Sam is like, that is factually accurate. Yes.
That is a correct statement. And so let me tell you some more about Payday 3. It might not have had the most fantastic launch, but the devs over there are doing what they can to keep smoothing it along and releasing new content there. When it comes to like being in the first person perspective and shooting guns, it feels pretty good to do that in Payday 3. All the weapons are super responsive. It feels great to just like be going on a heist with 3 of your mates, either stealthing your way in with some of these silenced weapons or just going loud and having some of these overkill weapons be dropped into you, whether it's like a grenade launcher or some high-powered sniper rifle. there's a great sense of feedback, especially when you're getting headshots and you're just plinking SWAT members from down the street as you're holding a position. Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed just the shooting in Payday 3.
I agree. I like the gameplay loop. I like the level design. I like the weapon design. But man, I like playing with friends. And that is a challenge, or was a challenge at least.
Yeah, it definitely was a challenge when it first launched, but it seems like they've really ironed out some of those kinks now. I haven't encountered any problems recently, so.
And I think we brought this up in another category, but there is a shift in design from Payday 2 to 3, where even if you're playing by yourself, you have to connect to a server, and I don't like that.
Yeah, but once you're in, those FPS elements, pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is important to note that most of my criticism is not about the mechanics or graphics or gameplay. It's just getting in.
Yeah, definitely.
And
It's such a weird decision to have to be like filtered through a lobby checking process when you're just playing by yourself.
You have to log in even to. It's just strange that you have to have like a login and a password to play it, even in single player. I don't like that trend, and I hope it's not going to continue. But we have seen it divide the Payday community, though, Sam. Like there are a lot of people who are just like, "Screw it, I'm going to keep playing Payday 2."
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. They already own it, and it's still a fun game. But obviously, Payday 3 is new, shinier, polished. Yeah, I understand why it's here, but I had to bring up some of the negatives about it too, Sam.
Yeah, definitely.
Had to do it. Our next nominee is System Shock Remake, another Night Dive banger. This game, it's weird. System Shock has always been a weird game that it kind of taxed the player to. You had to take notes. You had to take detailed notes while you played the game to really be able to get through it okay. Yeah, there's some backtracking and stuff that is just part of the level design. But Night Dive is just really good at, David, you mentioned earlier, like the digital eclipse of FPS remasters.
And this was monumental for them because even though it's like this is their first remake where they were basically said, hey, we're not giving like you there's a blueprint, but we want you to expand on it. And they proved that they can do more than just kind of remold clay that someone else shaped, right? So I think TJ can speak to it more, but I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. This game it's a tough one as far as like getting through it just because of how many things you have to take into consideration, not just mapping out as you go and remembering where things were, but also resource management in this game is kind of intense.
Yeah.
Like making sure that you have the weapons and ammo you need to deal with the biggest threats in the game is very difficult because the biggest threats, even the mid-tier threats in this game take a lot of ammo to take down. And ammo is like ridiculously scarce in this game. But it's like it builds to that tension, which is everything that System Shock is about. It's being on this station with this absolutely horribly inhospitable AI that's just playing and toying with everything on board it because it's in full control. It has no doubt that it's winning. And it just toys with you. And that lingering atmosphere of like your adventure might be futile is like it makes this vibe all the more like personal as basically you're the avatar of this character and experiencing that sort of trying to think of the best word for it, but like that intense sort of hopelessness as you're wandering through this really dark and mysterious ship.
Yep. And yeah, it's a solid game, but at the same time it shows its age even in the remake. Like just some of the design choices they make, like you would never see a game like that today. And it's kind of cool in that respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did an excellent job remaking it. They're very good.
A very, very different style of shooter on this list since you are actually not encouraged to go chasing after enemies and shooting at them in this game necessarily.
Yeah, you're really being hunted
Mhm.
in System Shock and in the remake. Highly recommend this game for folks who haven't tried it. This is going to be a really good way to experience it. So congrats to Night Dive. 2 nominations in this category. Kind of impressive. Kind of speaks to the quality work those folks are doing over there. Our next nominee, Metroid Prime Remastered. This game ruled on the GameCube. And it had been long rumored that we were going to get some Metroid Prime remasters. I think it's Nintendo Life ran that same news article for like 4 straight years about the Metroid Prime Trilogy remaster. We didn't get the trilogy, but we did get this shadow dropped during a direct. And it was what? I think it's still only $40. So this has been a year where Nintendo has a sliding scale to the cost of their games. And, you know, for someone who bought this for $60 or maybe even more back on the GameCube, it's nice to be able to buy it for less, I guess. It does make me wonder, like, we're not going to get a GameCube emulator on Switch, are we?
Not this late in the game.
Right? And
I mean, it's possible. I mean,
but if
remember what happened at the end of the Wii? The end of the Wii U is when we started getting the ports of Mario Galaxy. Like, so we don't know. Maybe.
No, we don't know. But I do think that there's like this seems to be a signal that we're not going to just give you a Dolphin equivalent for Switch. Maybe they're just going to start remastering some more GameCube titles. Especially if this next system is 4K or supports 4K, that might be a moment to go and tap, some of these GameCube IP and bring them over. You know, Melee, for instance, like a new remastered Smash Melee with rollback netcode and ice cream and puppies for everyone. Or there's obviously the Metroid Prime games. I'm trying to think, like, I would play a Rogue Squadron 2 remake or whatever. Like,
Star Fox Adventures, anyone remake?
Wind Waker. I
didn't hate Star Fox Adventures.
They did it for the Wii U, but not the Switch.
No, but my point is they could do it again, Greg.
Yeah.
They have no problem selling the same game to me over and over and over again. So like
it's part of their strategy.
So I do wonder if this Metroid Prime Remastered is a signal of what to expect in the future, because I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Wind Waker or a Wind Waker 4K remaster, and even on the N64.
They see the way the winds are blowing when it comes to remasters, because we got like a bunch of them this year.
You know what we're gonna get? We're gonna get Ocarina of Time remake.
Yeah, totally.
That's going to happen. That will happen. That'll happen before we get a new Zelda game. I'm gonna call that right now. I'm calling my shot.
It's a good year for Nintendo and remasters and remakes, and we saw it with Metroid Prime. We saw it with Advance Wars. Mm-hmm. We saw it with Super Mario RPG, and that's like across a variety of generations.
And that's it. You're nailing it, Ozzy. Like, and they did it with Link's Awakening, right? And they've done it. I think even didn't they do it with like Pokemon Yellow? There was like a Pikachu.
They did.
Let's Go Pikachu. Yeah, the Let's Go
like a remake
Pikachu.
Of Red and Blue.
And then they remade Diamond and Pearl just for funsies.
So yeah, this generation Nintendo has shown that, like, yeah, we are gonna remake or remaster some games. Metroid Prime was already great, and we mentioned it in another category, I believe, probably the best Switch game of the year category. But they mapped it to the modern controls, and it plays extremely well now. So it's definitely a worthy nominee, but we should get on to the next one. They made a RoboCop game, and it rules. RoboCop Rogue City. Holy crap. This is the most unique FPS game of the year, at the very least. It has its own vibe. You feel like RoboCop. When you walk, you hear the clomping steps. Even when you run, you hear his faster clomping steps. RoboCop is like seeing a psychiatrist in this game. You can give parking tickets. You can shoot people in the junk or in the head. It's just great. And like, The music from the film is very present.
Actors'
This is
yeah.
this is such a gem. Yeah, you have the likeness of the the main characters. This is definitely set somewhere in between RoboCop 2 and 3, right? For people who haven't watched all three of those films.
After the second film, yeah.
It's after the second film, but before the third film,
Yeah.
because you know what happens in the third film, right, Greg? Bad things. Anyway, so like the drug that kind of took over Detroit by the time RoboCop 3 takes place is still very present. Nuke. The very early part of the game, you see a hostage situation in this news broadcast center. It's just great. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, this game has no business being this good.
I got a Steam achievement in RoboCop called Zip This Up. And I was like, what's that? And its description is shoot an enemy in a sensitive place.
Yeah, shoot him in the junk. You got an
Yeah, so
achievement.
I was like, cool. I don't know. That's it.
No, but that's like literally from the films. Like, that's something that happens in the movie. And yeah, there's a lot of moments like that. And RoboCop is an interesting story because it's about a robot that has flashbacks to when they were a human, and this game does that. That's why RoboCop is in therapy, because early on in the game, like, he hallucinated and saw his wife. So yeah, like, that push and pull between Murphy, the cop who was murdered, and RoboCop, who's supposed to be this logical automaton. It's been a theme of the films, and they do a very good job in this game of portraying that too. It's great. It's great. It's satirical in some places where it makes fun of the police. It makes fun of bureaucracy. It does a lot of stuff right. And it's a very worthy nominee here. If anyone else would like to chime in on RoboCop, go for it.
I feel like also all the nominations is the only one that's not a sequel or a remake. So like they didn't have like a base to look to compare to make something better, or like, look back, make what did they do wrong and fix it. Like, this was completely off the rails. And I think I interviewed the game director, and I think the biggest thing that they nailed was scope. Right? Like, this could have easily been like an open world game where you drive. It could have been all half-assed because the scope and the budget time just wasn't there, but they were so focused in like what feels good. And because it's a single player game, much like Metroid Prime Remastered, you can be overpowered and it's still fun, even if you're walking through everything and invincible for times. And I think getting that slow feeling of RoboCop, which is very difficult in a game. Ozzy, what was that first person game with the wizard thing we reviewed this year? I can't remember. The
Immortals of Avium. Yeah,
you're jumping and flying and you're moving all over the place. Like, RoboCop just rocks, and maybe rocks a little bit faster, and you're still having, like, you're not annoyed by the speed of it at all, which is actually kind of interesting. Like, it nails that game dynamic. It is a corridor shooting, it puts you in things, but it feels a lot of like the good old arcade days where you're put in a shooting gallery and you can just kill everything in one shot with your basic weapon because that's fun. That's the fantasy. They don't have to
what
worry
I thought
about
was cool, like what I thought was cool about the presentation, Greg, is like it's a first-person game, right? But there are scenes in the RoboCop films that are from RoboCop's perspective, and they recreate the look, the overlays, the data, the scanning. All of that is there, and it just. I know this is like trite. You feel like RoboCop.
Yeah.
Like, you literally do. They do a very good job of making you feel like RoboCop with the speed, with the way data shows up, the way that you can just pick up evidence and stuff. Like, there's just a lot there. The gun, like his gun, perfect. I don't know if I need to pick up a weapon in that game because his gun is perfect. You don't really need it.
I agree with Greg that, like, you want to be overpowered in a game like this.
Yes.
Why would you want to be a wiener RoboCop?
Yeah.
Like, that's the trap that like a bunch of the old school adaptations fell into. Is that like, oh, it has to be balanced. No, it doesn't. You're playing this for a power fantasy. So of course you want to be like the baddest ass RoboCop you can be. Like, I don't want to be like a tin can. I want to be like a modern machine, like mowing down bad guys.
And also goes without saying, I think that in 2023, like, the topic of law enforcement in general is pretty hot and controversial, and like they handle it so well in RoboCop Rogue City because you play as a cop. And like I was worried about that. I'm like, oh wow, it's been a rough year for law enforcement. You know, like I don't want to have to. It's been pretty good. Like they handle it really well. Like
it's been
really
a rough,
tactfully.
It's been a rough forever for law enforcement.
Yeah, it's just controversial topic. Yeah, it's just so I was like, oh no, you know, when they make a
I don't want to limit it
game.
to 23, man. I don't want to limit it to 23. It's been a rough.
Yeah, they will blanket it. But yeah,
it's been a rough time in the history of being a police officer.
I might be the odd person out here. I trust you. I'm going to be truthful. I've never seen a RoboCop movie.
What?
Oh no,
David, watch the RoboCop movie. Watch the first one.
I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
That's fine. But definitely watch RoboCop.
Well, so here's what I
got before that Bethesda game comes out.
Yeah, that's
okay. I'll do that. But here's what I took from this. What I loved about this game is it felt like a more action-heavy System Shock or Deus Ex, because you're making some narrative choices. You're upgrading. It felt like it's I think like System Shock Remake and RoboCop Rogue City this year scratched like different itches for me, sometimes the same itches, and I thought that was pretty cool. And as someone who doesn't know anything about the IP, I was able to enjoy this as like just a great FPS, almost RPG like hybrid, right?
I think that's what makes it so good, is that you do not need to know a damn thing about RoboCop to have fun in this game, and that's important. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I really, something that I struggle with in lots of games, not specifically FPS games, and I haven't played all through RoboCop, so I've only played through like some of the beginning of it. From what I've heard though, like you're pretty powerful, right? And I'm not saying the game isn't difficult, but like they don't shy away from that power. I really dislike it when a game feels like it always has to be 5 feet ahead of me in terms of difficulty. Like if I get to level 100, it's like the enemies are just level 105 because what would we ever do if we didn't challenge you? And I'm like, I don't know, I could just chill out and blow shit up. Like sometimes that's fun. Sometimes I don't want to have to grind against like the ever increasing difficulty of enemies. Sometimes I just want to shoot somebody in the zip it up and go about my business, man, you know? And I appreciate that.
Yeah. I want to just add that you can throw stuff in RoboCop and it's hilarious. You can like pick up a computer monitor, just chuck it at someone, or like, you know, there's explosive barrels like any good shooter. I don't know why bad guys always leave explosive barrels around their HQs, but
because they're dumb.
You can literally pick them up though, Ozzy, and just Donkey Kong throw the barrel at them, and they just all explode. It's so much fun. Like,
we're gonna have to check out the bad guys subreddit and see what they're saying about these barrels, because we do need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, it's like Bond villains always forget one thing when the laser's about to kill James Bond, and yeah, RoboCop bad guys always have explosive barrels somewhere near them.
As they should.
But yeah, the ability to just pick them up and throw it as a weapon, I love. And you're RoboCop, so you have a really good arm. You can like toss stuff from across the room, and it's just fun. Like the game has this. It'll sound weird to say, but it has this feel of like Duke Nukem 3D with like the scenes that you're in, the destructible environments, which I think is actually a cool thing in RoboCop. You can just like walk through a wall of glass like it's nothing. Obviously you can shoot through glass, but just there's this scene where like pillars are being shot up. Like I love the detail that they did put in the environment that enhanced the gameplay and also just make you feel indestructible again.
Yeah,
right?
if you go watch the movies, like the models like are like 1-to-1 from the film. The police station's nearly 1-to-1. There's a scene where you have a flashback in your apartment, and all the computer systems, the furniture, the stuff on the table, the coffee mugs, all of it's 1-to-1. Like
his like really charging station, his charging station like throne thing, Greg. It's 1-to-1 with the film too.
Really impressive. Their attention to detail.
They worked with the IP owner. Or at least the studio has a reverence for the IP, and it shows through everywhere. And yeah, it's what an unexpected gem in this very stacked year of video game releases. I think we've sung enough of RoboCop's praises for now, but David, definitely watch RoboCop.
I gotta check out
the first one. I would argue all three are great, The third one is almost cartoonish at times, but the first two are great. I think you'd like them. I think RoboCop 1 is it's an excellent origin story. It's an excellent origin story, and this is after that. But yeah, the also the dad from that '70s show. He's the bad guy. He's the bad guy.
Oh wow! Okay.
I think you just sold it to David.
Yeah. Look, I know how to sell David. I'm like, look,
you do.
One more thing. Red Foreman's in it.
I'll say the best way to be RoboCop without being shot by 6 guys with shotguns and Clarence Boddicker.
Yeah. Oh man, there are one-liners in that movie, David, for days.
Yes.
So yeah,
Some layers.
I highly recommend RoboCop.
You'll appreciate his Mortal Kombat 11 cameo a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you say? We should probably vote. I think we've done enough here. Denny, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, I had the most fun with RoboCop. Payday 3 was fun too, but yeah, the online stuff took it out of my top. So yeah, RoboCop.
David.
As much fun as I've had in RoboCop, I feel like Quake 2 so far is like the apex of what Night Dive can do. Just treating an IP with reverence. So I'll go with Quake 2.
Donovan.
I'll vote for RoboCop.
I'm gonna wait. Greg.
Just skip yourself and keep going down.
No.
You're
out of order. No. You're not out of order. TJ.
RoboCop.
See, sometimes my vote doesn't matter, Greg. Sometimes I'm just here to wear the wig and declare winners. And hit the gavel. And drink green tea. Ozzy.
Yeah, your vote's probably not going to matter. I'm going RoboCop.
Yeah, I mean... Bill?
Quake 2.
Sam?
Quake 2.
Interesting. Not Payday 3, Sam.
No, Quake 2.
Interesting. You made an impassioned case for Payday 3 in several of our deliberations, so I was curious.
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, I do love it, but you know.
Yeah, Steve.
RoboCop.
Yeah, my vote does not matter. But if it did, I was gonna vote for RoboCop over Quake 2 because it's new, and God, we need more single-player FPS games.
I almost went RoboCop because I love it. I just feel like this is also the year Quake 2 could get its flowers, but just by being nominated, it got its flowers. So
that's my thought.
Totally fun. Yeah,
we needed to nominate it because we are a Quake website and Quake 2 rules. But Rogue City, like Greg's point, it's a new game. Like they made a new game and they took some risks and it paid off. And it's not the largest
game
team
using
on
an
Earth.
established IP that could have gone terribly wrong, but it didn't.
Yeah. So I believe the developer is Teon. But yeah,
which is funny because they also did the Terminator game, and the Terminator game didn't quite hit these heights.
It was rough, but it had a lot of good ideas. I played that game, but it had a lot of good ideas that were realized in this game. I think that helped them make this game much better.
Yeah. So I was gonna vote for Rogue City anyway. But yeah, congratulations. RoboCop Rogue City is the Shacknews Best FPS Game of the Year 2023.
Thanks to RoboCop, we'll show you how. Because it's important to remember the nuke crisis seemed unstoppable, but not to RoboCop. He is the perfect policeman.